the best
Okay.
way forward, how we can save our American public through proper nutrition, and how we can stop vilifying cattle ranchers. It's important to have guys like you on, because not only were you a remarkable leader in the military, but since I was a brand new Green Beret when I first met you. You were the first company commander I had, but even back then, it was known that you had this proud lineage with cattle ranching, and it's something that is awesome to see. Our veterans are able to get out and continue to lead, in industries that are so friggin' vital. So today, man, this is your episode. Let's dive in.
Well, thanks, Danny. I appreciate the words, and I remember when you showed up, and you were a damn good Bravo. And I know your career went on to do great things. I followed you, and it's great to call you a brother. But yeah, when my grandfather got back from World War II, he had originally grown up in Kansas and got his veterinary degree from KU, and then joined the Army and did veterinary doctor stuff, and actually spent a lot of time on naval ships. But he got back and he really wanted to get into cattle ranching, and there wasn't much left for him back in Kansas. His parents had died. And so he took my grandmother, his childhood sweetheart, and he moved her and his two aunts out to Nevada because he found that might be a good place to start buying land, start cattle ranching, and start a little veterinary practice. And that's what he did. And so it's a generational cattle ranch, and started. It's morphed over the years. Now we're Black Angus production cattle, if you will. We follow a lot of the lobbies and a lot of the programs, and we sell under Rabbit Creek Ranch, but the overall business is Key Ranches. But it's a ton of fun being around quality people. Our ranch managers, the families that live out there, have been with us 25 to 35 years.
Wow.
And they're salt of the earth people. We consider them family, and they're the real cowboys that have the loop above their head going down the hills, going way too fast, and stuff that I just look and applaud at. But
Yeah.
But it's an honor to be part of it.
Man, I've seen some of your videos highlighting some of the best times out there, and it looks like you're still on deployment. It's literally you on ATV going on the backcountry. I'm like, dude, it's just like Afghanistan, except a lot less. Or maybe there's a fair amount of danger, but probably not so much with slinging lead.
No, I sometimes I'll shoot a badger or something, but yeah, a lot less, a lot different than Afghanistan. It kind of does feel like a deployment, but it's way simpler. I don't need to have double basic load. I don't need to have a whole bunch of equipment. I don't got any SOI. I don't got a big comms check. It's just me and in a go bag, really, and a couple rounds of ammunition, because I don't expect to find a lot of badgers.
Yeah. Going back in, though, I have to imagine that your pivot, there must have been a lot of maybe new lessons to be learned. I do understand that there's a lot that transfers over, but going back into this, was there a lot of fear? Was there a lot of like catching back up, or were you able to do like a seamless jump?
I don't think it's ever seamless, and I'm still tripping over random corners that no one painted orange. But so I don't know that it's seamless. But I've really enjoyed transitioning into the civilian workplace. I kept my clearance for a couple of years and did some contract work, and just kind of found like I don't really like doing that much. And and also I enjoyed dealing with chasing money and building businesses. In fact, tomorrow I've been doing I was doing residential stuff, and I was flipping houses. For whatever reason, I like real estate, and I always kind of thought that'd be fun. And I dabbled in it when I was active, and then got out and started buying a lot of property on the other side of the country where I am now, on the Space Coast of Florida, and flipping houses, and that was fun. And then I took the jump and went into commercial, and my first commercial business will open tomorrow morning. And,
no way.
Yeah, it's been about 2 years in the works, and it's been a lot of fun. But to get back to your question, the leap, I treated it just like a military operation. I see a lot of veterans we know how to do MDMP. Yeah. We know how to do mission analysis. We know how to do IPB. We know the 17 steps of MDMP backwards and forward. But then guys get out and they look at like, well, my aunt lives over here, and so I'm going to do that, but I want to focus on, whatever your like gambling machines, whatever your focus is. And then you just screwed up the where. If you don't have all 5 W's right of a mission statement, you failed before you started. And you got to get the where. And so where I live, I want to go after real estate. I looked at markets all over the country. I wasn't even tied necessarily to the U.S. And I looked at the 2020 BRAC, Base Realignment and Closing Commission.
Yeah.
And I looked at what they were doing in the Space Coast of Florida and the partnerships with private industries such as SpaceX and Blue Origin, Dale 3 Harris, and all these things. And I looked at how that area, the area where I am now, got crushed in 2008, like everywhere, and then got crushed even harder in 2011 when they took the space shuttle away. So scratched my head a little bit. You know what? I don't know anybody there, but let's go start buying property there.
Yeah.
And then I did my due diligence. I did my IPB. I did my MDMP, and turns out it's worked. And I do the same approach with the cattle ranch out west, where I spend about a quarter to a third of my time.
Yeah, it's funny how area studies, analysis, all the fundamentals, and even PDSS. I've met tons of guys that had the right mentality. They understood the industry they wanted to get in, and they did exactly what we did when we were preparing for a mission. Long range planning. What do I need to make this pivot successful?
How do I get it?
Yeah.
And like, the business that I'm opening tomorrow, and I'm going to give a little plug for it. It's called Coffee Tiki. It's a family entertainment center in downtown Cocoa Beach. It's on the beach. And before I explain more about it, I'll explain like kind of what I did. I originally was going to do like axe throwing in bikinis on the on the beach, bikinis. We're throwing axes. We'll do some weird stuff. I'll set up a little selfie museum, and I thought, well, that's the direction I was going. And then I did the same thing that we do in the military. I'm okay. Let's do pattern of life. Let's recon. And there was no halo, sexy infill. I didn't have to scuba Steve up to anything. I parked my car in plain sight, got my clipboard, and got a coffee, and I sat my ass down in front of the property that I had bought, and I just looked at it, and I watched it during all different times of day, and I saw families coming off the beach and wiping their kids' feet off with wet naps. I saw kids full of sand, screaming and crying. Saw other kids want to go back to the beach, and other moms wanting to get the little ones off. And I'm like, God, this is there's some problems here. Yeah. So what I did is I built an outdoor pool and put indoor arcade and a whole bunch of showers, so you can come shower, get a wristband, go to the beach all you want, come back, play, get an ice cream sandwich, play in the arcade, run around, get energy out, get out of the weather. It's indoor, most of it, except for the outdoor pool, and let your kids run around. And then if you want to go to dinner, you're not all full of sand, go shower, and go enjoy a nice restaurant in downtown Cocoa Beach. And it was that simple IPB kind of stuff of like, what's missing? What do we need to do?
Yeah, that's brilliant.
It was fun. I'm opening tomorrow morning for what's the annual Surfing Santas competition, which every year Cocoa Beach tries to break the world record for the number of surfing Santas.
Dude, that's perfect.
Yeah. So,
knowing you, it doesn't shock me the way you approached it. And that's the brilliance of, you don't have to have 15 doctorates and master's degrees and all the stuff to sit down and open up your lens, open up your aperture, and look at the problems. Look at what's not working. How can you improve on it? How can I be successful in this space? Like, what do they need? Like, and so many veterans already do that in their day-to-day lives, and have this idea and this thing that grows within them, and they want to try it, but then it gets scary. That next step, having to put it into action, gets really scary, and guys back out and they do the contracting. They do the normal things that we've been told is normal. We've been told is safe. And
I'll be a GS10, sure, whatever.
Yeah.
What you do? We need those people. I got nothing to frown about it, and I have nothing but applause and love for my brothers to choose whatever direction they want.
Yeah.
But you're right. It is, and I threw 100% of my life savings into this stuff that I'm doing, and if it didn't work or doesn't work, I'm all in.
Yeah, fail fast.
Somehow it's been working so far.
Yeah,
managed to put food on the table.
Yeah,
normally beef.
Which which is something that we grew up always being told that, and especially like for a while. I forget when it first really started kicking out, this whole vegan kick, and this whole like try to erase proteins, like the beef protein out of your diet. It's really bad for you, high cholesterol. And cows are destroying the environment. And I just remember like how passionate these activists have been growing in the last few years about removing cattle from the environment. And I'm like, dude, this doesn't make any sense. And you look at everybody who's amplifying this message, and it's all about destroying the farming industry, destroy the ranching industry. And it's like, wait a second, like, why don't we listen to the voices of the people actually doing this? Why don't we listen to the doctors that are actually like showing how healthy diet, like it's a healthy and vital aspect of your diet to eat beef, to actually have real protein, not synthesized protein from a fake veggie burger. Like there's real stuff like the carnivore diet, for instance. Tons of guys switched to it before I left the teams. There were tons of people that were making that shift, and I noticed nobody had any adverse effects. But every time I talked to somebody that had been on a vegan diet for a really long time, they're like, yeah, I had to supplement heavily with X, Y, and Z. I was not able to get everything through my nutrition. And when you were going back into the space, like, how did you find yourself wanting to put more time and effort into this and to figure out the backstory, figure out the truth, and how can you like make it a profitable industry or make it a profitable endeavor, knowing that there's so many people on the outside trying to cut you down, trying to destroy the beef industry?
Yeah, I think that's an awesome question. And I have seen a pendulum shift. I don't know if it's quite a swing yet, but it seems to be a shift where I'm primarily carnivore. And I have been keto carnivore for about 4 years now. And I do see that, I compare it to the craft beer market. Coors and Budweiser would never stand for someone taking 10% of their aisle. But slowly, people wanted to know where their beer came from, and the craft beer thing started to grow. And you go into any supermarket across the country now, and you got about 10% of it is local craft beer, or some, throwing some Samuel Adams and some other beers. But they took that from the Coors and Budweiser mainstream. And you can kind of see that now happening with beef. People want local beef. They want it. And you can see that starting to grow in each supermarket. And you can see with your own eyes. They got a little section and it's locally sourced wherever you live. And it's starting to grow. And that to me tells me that there's more people out there getting interested in the beef and interested in the food and paying attention to the facts. Because, I'm almost 52 and I can still run a sub 7-minute mile. I got a lot.
We have to preface this. We do have to say you are not the normal human being. You're Kevin Key. You were Major America, and you're still.
Thanks, Daddy. But I hurt too. I got metal. I've had knee surgery.
I've been following. That's. I was joking with Shane a while back, and we were like, dude, this is the only man that when they go in to like improve his body, they're like, we can't improve it with science. This man's perfect. Like,
well, I've always eaten a lot of beef, and what's kind of funny on it too is the more I've done it, I started out just doing keto, and like I'd buy the keto friendly stuff, the bars on the side, and then my taste just changed, and now I just kind of just want meat. And the thing I love about the keto carnivore thing is it's not some darn religion. Like I'm not preaching. Yeah. And if I want a beer, I'll drink a beer. If I want to have some nachos, I'll eat some nachos. Go out to sushi, I'll have some sushi. I'll eat rice. I'm it's not a religion. It's a way. It's a better practice where, I kind of look at myself as I appreciate your words, but I kind of think of myself as that old Mach 1 Mustang that's got a little bit of rust under it. It ain't the fastest thing around. It ain't the prettiest one, but it works pretty good and sounds. It backfires here and there. Yeah. But I'll throw the 87 octane in it and just kind of keep it going. And that's kind of what I do with my diet. I keep about 90 to 95% of the stuff going into me. There's good stuff. And then Friday and Saturday nights, a lot of whiskey seems to find its way to my lips. And I'll do what makes me happy.
Yeah. We have to understand that both camps can get really rigid in their belief. And I understand the importance of advocating for what you feel is the right path. But man, like just live your life. Just live your life. Find what works for you. And don't try to vilify somebody that doesn't fall into your camp. Because I'll tell you right now, every time we went down south, the thing that stuck with me are butcher shops. Everywhere we went, we were able to get good quality meat right from a butcher.
Cheap.
And for a great price. I remember Peru, be able to buy like all the beef and like be able to eat like kings. People always think that when we travel abroad, we're constantly eating at restaurants. Fine dining is like, no, like there are moments when you go visit really like nice places. But the culminating thing after a hard day's training is you go back to the house and you cook something. You have something, you're all working together to make a meal. And the butcher shops is like, it stands out because we used to have them all over the United States. It used to be where you would go get your meat. Nowadays, they don't exist. Like very few of them at least. And I feel like that is a huge disservice to American people. Like being able to buy local beef that you can go and people like right now, one of the biggest things I hear from all my friends is like, oh, we're going to buy a quarter. We're going to go get our own cow and know where we're getting our beef. Or hunting, being able to get your own game and understand like what you're putting in your body matters, because come to find out, the people that say they're supposed to take care of you, that they have all these regulations of how they're going to help you be healthy, they're not necessarily the best public servants.
You're right, Denny. Yeah, but it's interesting. For me, COVID was really the answer. What turned me on? I'd heard about the carnivore diet. I'd heard about keto. It sounded pretty neat, but not having a bunch of nachos. I like nachos, but or French fries. Really, is like, I don't know about that. It sounds a little I don't know. And then COVID happened, and bored out of my mind, sitting around watching documentaries, and kind of navigated. Digressing real quick, when I was in NPS, Naval Postgraduate School, and I did my master's. I wrote my master's thesis on human performance, and was not looking at keto carnivore, but couldn't deny the data with nutrition, and really that was really when my journey kind of to nutrition started, and really paying a lot of close attention. And I got into eating whole natural foods at that time, and that's when you met me. I was kind of just like eat healthy, but not strict in any one way. But then I started reading more, and I just kept staying interested with it. And COVID happened. I'm like, well, I'll start reading this. And then I got COVID. I'm like, well, if I really think this thing works, now's the time to put my health where my mouth is, and I'm all right. I think there's something to it. So I went strict carnivore, and like most people that do it, I had a slump. I got brain fog, and it lasted about 10 days. I didn't really feel that good. Kind of felt like shitty. And then I got through it. And then all of a sudden, I didn't need coffee that much anymore. I didn't need other things. So I have gray in my beard, but a lot of it went away. My skin got better. Things I didn't even give a shit about. My recovery time went back down from workouts to what I was getting when I was in my 30s. I'm like, hey, this is cool.
Yeah.
And then once my body got used to being in ketosis, I could throw in easy cheats. I could have beer, but my body's still gonna just rock right through it. And I can have rice. I can have it in moderation.
Yeah.
And it worked, but just kind of kept studying. And then, segue. And then that led my wife and I, we just wrote our first book, The Cow is How, which is just came out on Amazon. The Cow is How, and it's how we fix our food, farming, and pharma.
Yeah,
and
let's dive into that. That's the meat of this episode. Take us through that process, going into the belly of the beast, so to speak.
Sure. So we were, again, lots of research, going into this stuff, reading a ton of books. Not thinking of writing a book, just kind of really getting into it. And then, looking at some of our family and mental health issues that they struggle with, and physical ailments. And my wife lost her mom to pancreatic cancer suddenly. And we start doing all these correlative research topics, and you start to see where there's these things like arsenic in water and poor health choices and all these preservatives that are illegal in other countries that are in just tons of our food, and all this poisoning factors that are everywhere. And then my wife's father was diagnosed with Parkinson's recently, and so we started to look at the contributing factors and the rise in all these Western illnesses that correlates directly to the rise in preservatives and junk stuff that comes in colorful boxes that are throughout the supermarket. So we started really kind of caring about the people around us. Like, hey, how does this matter? And we started doing research, and more, and started going to seminars and joining different groups, and then really kind of look into like, wow, this is really crazy. Like, there's a lot of correlation, and the evidence that's out there that says, hey, you shouldn't eat meat or you shouldn't do this is really based on false studies at best, and kind of just ecological studies that look at like, well, these people have these problems and they did this. Well, what else did they do? Did they also smoke, drink? There's a thousand factors. You can't blame it on anyone of these factors, but you start to look at studies that show people that did just eat a lot of meat. And you look at the Native Americans, they didn't eat much other than meat until we got here and started throwing garbage at them. Yeah. And they, by all accounts, 200 years ago, were some of the healthiest people anyone had ever seen or heard of. And the stories of how they would ride for miles and miles and miles for just their daily practices are unreal and unheard of now. and those are physical feats. So they obviously were healthy.
Mm-hmm.
And why? And I think there's a lot of false criticism there. And the thing that always kills me is the methane, which it's not farts,
Yes.
it's burps. And and you're going to tell me, right now our cattle herd in the United States is down to what it was in the 1950s. We're very small, and a lot of that is because of recent droughts throughout Texas and other areas, and then price of cattle kind of drives it too. And the big four that really control the industry, the big four feedlots and producers, and they're kind of criminal as it is, but they really kind of drive the industry. And so our cow herd is down a lot. And you're going to tell me that these 30 million cattle that we currently have in the United States are somehow worse than the 300 million bison that are bigger and have bigger burps and we're everywhere? You're going to tell me that? And right now we know that the largest producer of methane in the United States is the Everglades, because it's dying gas, and the Everglades are full of dying shit.
Yeah.
And one of the biggest agriculture ones is rice cultivation.
I didn't know that.
Again, you do that's through, and all that is in our book, and it's documented, all that. But the other problems is our modern wheat, soy, and sugar cultivation. They till the top of the soil, and what that does is it prevents the natural grasses, such in our prairies and the Great Plains, or what once was the Great Plains. It prevents them from going down deep, and when they go down deep, that's how you sequester carbon and other harmful gases out of the atmosphere, and where they do good into the soil. And there's stories about, and this is in the book as well, that when we were settling the Great Plains, we could actually build houses out of mud blocks. And then we started tilling the soil, we planted crap on top, and now it turned into the Dust Bowl in the Great Depression. And now we got these things with glyphosate and all this other poison that we put on there, and we have to have special resistant corn stalks for all this genetically modified crap. And the worst part of it all is not only we're not sequestering the carbon, but that water is not getting down into the aquifer, which was once the largest aquifer in the world. And now we're down to about 20% of our aquifer that's under what was once the Great Plains because of our agriculture practices.
Yeah, we tweak one thing and we set off a giant chain of events that nobody really pays attention to unless you're going for a graduate degree. And even then, the studies are all swayed, and come to find out, the studies are often focused around the things that benefit the people that donate the most to these universities. I didn't know that. I'm just now finding that out as I'm going to school. So that just tells you, like, holy shit, if I have enough money to invest and donate, well, I can pretty much pay for research to reflect what I want it to reflect. And that is criminal. That is absolute freaking criminal.
Yep. Broccoli and grass-fed beef don't build wings at universities or medical schools or nutrition schools.
So true. When you're diving into this subject, did you find yourself going down the rabbit hole and sort of scaring yourself with how much is out there that is trying to fight against your industry?
Yes. Yeah. It's yeah. And even when we're writing the book, I'm like, oh, people are going to hate us. I'm telling, like in the book, I'm just saying, hey, Big Pharma, you're wrong and you're evil. And I'm sorry, Big Ag, you're wrong. You're evil. You're screwing up our planet. You're poisoning the people. Billions of pounds of anti-insecticide crap and all stuff we spray all over our food. And beef and other livestock are not immune, but it's a lot better than a lot of this corn products and soy products, and there's just so much poison in it.
Yeah. And when it comes to telling the truth, what are some of the real realities? Like, we've already covered some of the myths, but what are some of the truth about the cattle industry that we need to promote and start sharing and telling people about it? Because we don't really have a good messaging system or a messaging arm for the cattle industry. We don't have we don't have a Netflix show. We don't have somebody amplifying these messages. So we're just stuck having to either find the studies on our own or, finding niche creators are willing to talk a little bit about it. So tell us, like, what are some of the realities of this line of work, and how is it a benefit to our nation?
Well, it is really a significant benefit, but it also is very disjointed. So for instance, our cattle ranch, we are a calf cow, and a lot of people don't understand how the whole process works. And so what we do is we buy bulls, we breed our cattle, and then we raise young steers and heifers, and then we wean them, and we advertise they'll be weaned for 30 days, and then we ship them off to a buyer somewhere in a semi truck, and well, the buyer brings their semi truck, but and then we start the process all over again. And from when they leave us, they go to what's called a stocker, and they're normally there a year to 18 months, and then they just be happy and get big, and then they go to a feedlot, which they're there for about anywhere between 2 to 6 weeks, and that's where all the stats come from. Like, oh, all this methane, and they do the feedlot, and they look at the feedlot. Well, you're talking less than 5 to 10% of a cow's life.
Yeah.
And most of the time when they're out on pasture, the grass is immediately sequestering a lot of that methane and other forms of things. And in addition, like when you look at a row crop industry like corn or anything, you look at what that's done to what was once the natural environment. And then you compare it to a cattle ranch. And you're going to see some fences, but you're going to see something that looks pretty darn similar to what it looked like 500 years ago. Mm-hmm. You're going to see the deer, you're going to see the antelope, you're going to see the foxes, you're going to see whatever the rabbits. You're going to see the rivers unaltered. You're going to largely see that the environment is what it's meant to be, which is to support bovine creatures as well as the rest of nature together.
Yeah, and that's the important thing to realize, that it's not destroying the environment, it's living within the ecosystem that's already there. Like, that's the other thing that I've learned about understanding regenerative agriculture. The way we farm in this country, what we've come to be told is the normal way of farming, is ridiculously destructive. Mm-hmm. It's not in line with nature, and it's by being able to apply these like tried and true methods that existed long before modern agriculture that we can get back to like having healthy soil. That's another thing I didn't understand, the importance of healthy soil mm-hmm. that actually feeds back and gives nutrients back and retains those nutrients as well, rather than that topsoil layer that we were talking about earlier. It just destroys and blows everywhere. When we're talking about modern cattle ranching, are we looking at the end days, or are we looking at an industry that doesn't have enough people involved, or is there an American spirit that's being woken up and having more and more people turning to it? Because like you mentioned before, we have this powerful system that dominates and kind of makes it almost not profitable to be a cow rancher these days. We look at the top producers of beef. I think Brazil is still one of the big producers of meat. And it's like everything's being like shoved outside of the United States, and like it's a part of our American culture. Like American culture, it's being erased. The cow rancher, the cowboy, these are all things that are American as can be. And
West wasn't one on salad.
It wasn't, but we're like, I see like Yellowstone's a perfect, or we shouldn't say a dramatic example of what we could be seeing, just constantly pushing back against this vital aspect of our American way of life into extinction. Do you feel that there's hope for it, or do you feel like it's still a hard fight to get people brought into this industry?
I think there's hope, but I think the struggle is real, and it hurts a lot of families. And I'll give you a quick little story to this point. Is I used to work out on our cattle ranch in the summers, and I got paid, and I would go out there and do cowboy stuff, and loved it, thought it was great. And long before I decided to join the military, and my grandfather asked me, so what do you want to do with your life? And I said, I want to come out here and work. And I thought I was saying something really cool that he would like to hear, like, oh, you want to be part of this? And he fired me on the spot right there. And he said, that's it. You're fired. You'll never work for this ranch another day, but you're invited back all the time, and I hope to see a lot of you. But if you want to learn to run and own this thing, go get another job. And sadly, that's the truth. That's what you got to do in most cases. Go get another job so you can survive a couple of years of drought, and this ranch doesn't die. You don't have to sell it.
Yeah,
because that's what happens sadly to a lot of owner operators. Is times get tough, and what are you going to do? Are you going to let your family starve? And the sad answer is a lot of times they have to just sell.
Yeah.
And those developers are knocking at the door, ready.
That is so
And so,
true.
I'm actively looking into things like conservation easements and diversitizing. I do not do farm to table. I want to do farm to table, but that takes people.
Yeah.
And I made our ranch manager a promise. Like, I'm not going to throw. You know me. I got a lot of random ideas all over the place all the time. But I said, look, you're going to listen to my random ideas and don't expect that I think they're all going to work. You just got to entertain me a little bit. But I promise you, I'm not going to throw random ideas at you without more help.
Yeah.
So I got to figure out how do I do this? What's the infrastructure look like? Where do I build it? Who's going to do it?
Yeah.
How do we get them? And I got to build that. And I stood up a company called Battleborn Beef, which I'm going to do that on the ranch, and so it doesn't actually threaten the ranch. And so if it fails, that's all right.
Yeah.
All right, Dad. So you're right. It didn't work, but nothing's wrong with the ranch. Ranch is fine. But I'm going to try to start doing farm to table starting next year.
And that's what Battleborn Beef will be.
Yeah, right now there isn't one steak ready to serve, so it's just on paper. But I'm going to start looking at taking some of our leftover stuff, looking at ways to finish them, looking at where do you get them processed. Getting cattle processed is a significant pain in the butt to sell.
Yeah,
if you're talking state lines and if you have a processing plant, you have to hire a full-time FDA employee, and normally two, with all the special handicap things and all that, and you pay for them and pay for their office, and they can shut you down at any time. And so working through the red tape of getting somebody an actual, piece of steak on their plate is really hard. And when you hear people talk about the quarter cow and half cow, what you're actually doing is you're buying that cow, or that part of a co-op, if you will, if it's a quarter cow. And then you're basically at the whim of who knows. Like, okay, now that you own it, what would you like to do with it? Well, I thought you were going to turn it into hamburger and steak. Well, yeah, if that's what you'd like to do. So you're actually they're doing it, but you effectively are owning it, and you're the one that's actually legally working through that process. Is how they skip that legal loophole.
Yeah, it seems like we built a system that is just trying to handicap the mom and pop rancher.
It is. And, like, for instance, when we sell our cattle, that we're in northeastern Nevada, sometimes they'll go to Nebraska, and then they'll go to like Oklahoma to a feedlot, and that's transportation of giant 1,000-pound animals. That cost is put onto the consumer. And I love being in cattle ranching business, but I'd like to see that change, and I'd like to find a way to start changing it on my end. And right now I'm victim to the industry that I'm part of. And I can't, I'm not allowed to finish beef and sell it off of our ranch. Can't. It's against the law. And so I'm working to ways to try to figure out how to do that and how to get quality product where I can say, this is where this came from, and there are no crazy chemicals, and we are taking care of the land. And here's a picture of it, and it looks nice. And you're being part of the solution. But the industry is hard to work against.
Yeah. Would you say it's largely due to the fact of not having enough representation at government levels, not having somebody that's willing to advocate? Because we always hear about lobbies and different groups, but at what point are they actually producing enough change? Are they actually doing what they're being sent up there to do? Or is it just a lot of blowing steam and just blowing smoke up people's asses? Like, it seems like we have enough data, we have enough desire, we have enough people that are wanting to have control over what they're consuming. There should be some changes, but it never changes.
Like to see it. Yeah, right now you're facing, like, you're facing major tens of thousands of cattle processing things, which if you're making a half a cent per head of cattle, you can make major profit. And that's not the profit margin, but I'm just saying an example is compared to a family-owned business like ours, and you got a few hundred head available here and there. I need that margin to be a lot more than half a cent. It's got to be kind of high, and it's hard for me to start looking at, well, how can I make money and still give a quality product where these big guys are just chomping out cows and hamburger and Quick Tyson, all these Carhill, all these big names, and I can't compete. So you kind of got to join them in some ways to be part of the system. But there are some. Walmart, of all places, has a good program where it really would take someone as big as Walmart to really do it. And what it is they work with an organization called 44 Farms, and I know some of the folks that are in that, and they bought our our cattle before too. And then they have their own processing plants, and they have their own stockyards, and they cut out a lot of the the big guys, and they do some direct to consumer ish stuff, and they sell under McLaren Farms. So if you go, their purchasing agent is Prime Pursuits, and then they sell under McLaren Farms, and you can go into certain Walmarts. They started out, I think they were in something like 1,500 stores, and now they're only in 800 because it got too popular. But you can get high end quality beef for a lot less. I don't know if they're over by where you are, but we got one. There's one in Merritt Island, Florida, close to me, that the Walmart that carries McLaren Farms, and you can find it around there. Not most Walmarts, but some. But that's an example of a positive trend.
Now, what about Butcher Box? That's one thing that, like, I'm a big Butcher Box guy, and I love the quality or the perceived quality, because I don't know. It's been in the back of my mind. It's like, where do they source their beef? Are they really as good as they say? Are they part of the dreaded giant mechanism? And they're just getting our money a different way.
I think they're great. I think that kind of stuff is the positive trend. Like if you look at Walmart, McLaren Farms, Prime Pursuits, what have you, like that doesn't necessarily represent what you want to see, which is Bob down the street who raises his 6 cows and sells to the local thing. But it's a step in the right direction, away from the major factory production facilities.
No.
And I'd like to, and hopefully if we can get some of the rules changed a little bit better, to where someone like me that has animals has a desire to sell them to someone in a healthy way and have my own butcher, that you could give me that legal capability.
Yeah. Yeah. It would be great to see butchers make it a big comeback in the United States. Like I feel more comfortable being able to like travel abroad and see, like, that's my chicken. That's my cut of beef. Like, I'm going to buy that and I'm going to cook it. And I've never gotten sick. Never. Like, I've traveled even to some of the worst outstations, being able to buy like your food off local economy. Same with Afghanistan. No issues there. Anytime I've gotten sick, it's been from American food.
We chopped the heck out of goats.
Yeah.
You know the deal. We ate them right there.
Yeah.
No one got sick, and it was darn good.
Yeah. And that's, we've created this myth of like being repulsed by the idea of seeing where your food actually comes from, meat specifically. This idea that it's not ethical to look at, and butcher an animal if you're going to consume it. It's like, dude, like, get outside, touch some grass, go hunting. Like, even if you've never hunted before, being able to understand like your relationship in the food chain is so important. Like, the amount of people that don't have that right now in the United States is insane.
Yeah. And another thing that we're doing. So I'm a COO of a venture capital firm's arm called Azulterra. And what we do is we're doing rounds. I think we're in our first round right now. I think we're looking about 50 million, I think, for our first round of investment. But the idea is to buy land and preserve it for the investors and return a profit and prevent it from being developed. And so we're looking at buying several different ranches. Even in Africa, we're looking at a couple different things.
No way.
That's the concept. And then there's and then the idea is that you can run a lot of hunting lodges and a lot of other things like that, and run cattle and prevent the houses from coming in, do conservation easements, and set it up so that it can ideally return a profit. Put a 5 to 7 year cap on it, to where you're going to have a sell point and an exit plan, and then just keep that model going to where you're going to have regular income coming and there. And so we just stood that up earlier this year, and we've been moving pretty aggressively, working with the University of Florida and a couple other universities around, and some farms in Georgia, as well as here in Florida. And then we want to expand to Nevada as well. But the whole goal is to preserve the land for what it's meant to be used for and make a profit.
Yeah. Man, you are tied into a lot. It doesn't surprise me, though.
I can't help it. Squirrel.
In this show, we talk a lot about the resilience, the mental health aspect, that pivot into the civilian world. When you decided to make that move, did you find yourself dealing with any of those, like that crisis, that purpose, and that identity? Or because you were so rooted in who you were and what your family had done for generations as a rancher, Were you able to make that pivot a little easier because you always knew at the core, like, hey, these are my values. I come from Nevada. My family's ranchers. Like, I know what I'm going to do. I might not know what I'm going to do forever, but a part of me will always be a rancher. Do you feel that part helped you carry through those first months of coming on the outside?
Yeah, well, I still miss being in the service, so I can't say that I'm cured or I did it all right. And and I, it is, the being around, I mean, we all see it. One of my biggest problems with being in the civilian world is, hey, can you have this done by Tuesday? Yes, and then it's not done until Friday, and you're like, like, what's wrong with you? And like, oh well, the sun and then this guy, and I was like,
I'm gonna go grab John Michael. Stay right here.
yeah, exactly. Who's hooting? But you can't hooting out civilians.
Yeah,
even though I'd like to. But
I can only imagine that. Yeah. You don't have that TPS report done? Don't worry, I got somebody for you.
So that that's a struggle. But to be honest, Danny, I do think it's it's hard. And I told you I kept my clearance for a little bit and did some consulting and was on some 1099s of a couple of companies and ultimately I was like, I'll tell you, here's a secret to that transition is, and it's not a good one, be an officer because then they make you stop doing all the cool shit sometime around the 04 rank and you barely get to do it anymore. So people are like, do you miss it? I'm like, yeah, I missed it. I've been missing it for 15 years. And even when I still wearing the damn uniform, I was missing it.
Oh, man.
I got to go to the range and watch it. They let me look at the gun. I didn't shoot it that much. But,
this is horse shit.
Yes, it is. And I love soldiering. I love soldiering. And they take that away from you a little quicker when you're a no.
Absolutely. And, yeah, I was just talking Forrest. Shout out to that guy.
Love Forrest.
He did the master plan. He really cheated. He went guard SF, and he's like, dude, I've been a detachment commander for like almost a decade. It's like,
well, that's great.
That's the ultimate cheat code. Usually, like officers have to like become a warrant officer to get a few more years to stay on the team.
Yeah, I do think it's hard though. You miss. Thankfully, I got a handful of SF guys that live around here, but it's it's a camaraderie that is gone when you're out. Not completely gone, but it's hard to have that show up to the team room and get made fun of by the same guys every day. And you can take the guy out of the team room, but you can never take the team room out of the guy.
No, I always tell guys, LGOPs, stick to your LGOPs. A hard lesson learned, and you. Any paratrooper that spent time in the 82nd knows that acronym and it knows what it means. Like little groups of paratroopers save lives. We're all going to transition or pivot out into the civilian market and have to figure out that next chapter. You don't have to do it alone. Continue reaching out, continue talking and texting and going to events. Like being willing to like go to the stupid 5K with some friends. Go do a weekend's camping trip. You don't realize how important it is until you're on the outside. You have to continue those relationships. They're not going to just mysteriously continue developing by themselves. You have to put in effort. And I get it. When you're isolated, when you're alone, the last thing you want to do is pick up that cell phone and text somebody. Force yourself to do it. Force yourself to go to those picnics. Get out. See people. The worst thing you can do is sit in your house, not be active, watching Netflix all day. Like
100%. Yeah, you need that vitamin D. Get outside.
Yeah, and the physical fitness aspect. You got to stay physical. That's another thing I appreciate that you put out there and show everybody the importance of staying active. Like for the vast majority of your life, you were active duty. You were going to PT, even if you didn't want to. You were out there getting active. When you get out, it's no different. Get motivated. Figure out how to do it. Like just go to the gym or connect with any one of those nonprofits out there, Team Red, White, and Blue, the Catch a Lift Fund. Be willing to like ask for help and resources. I know it's not easy, but trust me, it's worth it. Get after it. Kevin, one last thing before I let you go. Looking at this industry, if somebody wants to get involved and they're wanting to dive into the world of ranching, what do you recommend somebody would do? If they're in the military right now, they're about to retire or they're about to ETS, and they want to establish that, they want to go into that industry, what are some advice or some helpful tips you would give?
first call me or call someone else that's involved with it. They're look into programs. If you're coming from the soft world, they got the Care Coalition, and they have a lot of outreach that you can be involved in. They can help you find whatever it is you want to go be a plumber. They got things for that too. But in particular to agriculture, there's a lot of veteran-owned benefits and grants and ways to go about things. And I think that your first step is to talk to people, look for the information that's out there, use the resources that you have, and then be willing to take a leap. One of the huge values, particularly if you're retiring, is we don't have huge retirement salaries, but we have enough that as opposed to a lot of other industries, you got a safety net there. You're going to be able to put food on your table, and so you can, in my opinion, we have some advantages where I don't have to worry about healthcare. I don't have to worry about a blanket income, and that's valuable that I don't think a lot of other 50-something-year-olds may have with whatever it was you were doing for AT&T or whoever.
Yeah.
And so, and trust that, you can do that, and take professional courses. Just like, one of the advantages when you're in the military, regardless of your MOS, is you are going to professional development courses every year, all the time, random Tuesdays, whether you wanted to or not. And being in the civilian world should be no different. I make a rule. I will do a minimum of 2 professional development courses for the cattle ranch a year. Like I will do it. I will find it. I will invest. I'll spend the time, and I will learn from others in the industry.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of us don't do that.
Lifelong learners. That's the other thing that helps us with that brain matter, that you have to be willing to study and dive into reading. Like, I know it's not easy. I dealt with it myself, but let me tell you, like, if you're going to be an entrepreneur, there are tons of resources out there, but the one that gets overlooked is just doing the data, doing the research. Like, be a lifelong learner, be willing to dive into something and learn it inside and out. I get it. There's 5 million things you would rather do. Watch Netflix, stay on Instagram, challenge yourself in the coming year to spend 1 or 2 hours a week learning a new trade or learning something new about your current trade, your current job, your profession. We all need to challenge ourselves. You might not have the team or the mission to fuel that constant learning drive, but you can make those rules. You can establish these patterns on your own. It'll make you better. And then when somebody
100%.
needs help, you can help them through the same process. Kevin, what's the name of the book one more time?
All right, it is The Cow is How we fix food farming food farming and farming.
If you pause right now, go to the episode description. You'll see the link right there. Please do us a favor. Get that book by the time this airs, so it will be past Christmas. But if you forgot to send a gift to somebody, hit them up for the new year with a new book. Kevin, thank you so much for being here, man. I, again, so incredibly proud to have been able to serve with you, to have known your leadership, your mentorship. And I'll never forget those early months. I always talk about this. It's like, when did you get the drive or the idea that you want to be a warrant officer? Danny is like, well, I'll tell you. When I first showed up to ACO, they were all leaving for a deployment to Afghanistan. And then I was sitting there in the B team office, just twiddling my thumbs. The first person I see is Major Kevin Key at the time. Walk in, he's like, hey, what are you doing? I'm like, brand new 18 Bravo. All right, don't worry, we're gonna figure out a mission. And then a few days pass, and I'm still in that same B team office, no computers, nothing. Next individual is Doug, comes in, and I'm like, oh hey Chief. It's like, hey, who are you? 18 Bravo. In typical Doug fashion, he's drinking a coffee cup. He's like, yeah, don't worry, we'll figure out a mission. And then lo and behold, a few more people join in, and before you know it, that B team had a mission. And the next is history. And you see for the first time, all it takes to make things happen are just 3 individuals. You just need 3 people in leadership roles to make things happen. And that's that was honestly one of the best trips I ever had as a young Green Beret, because you learned so much in those first rotations, especially with Doug. And that guy was a hoot.
Honduras is fun. Honduras is fun.
Yeah. But to all you listening, thanks for tuning in. And Kevin, thanks again for being here, brother. Absolute pleasure. You're a legend to all of us in A17, brother.
Thanks, Danny. I appreciate it.
We'll see you guys next time. Until then, take care.